Hey guys, it's Derek here from Pacific Coast Auto in Japan, and this is quite a special car. This is a one of 820 something Nissan Skyline R31 GTS-Rs. And so the R is a racing homologation version of the R31 Skyline. Now, these cars were raced in Japan Touring Car Group A, RB20 inline 6-cylinder, a special version of the engine, more on that in a sec. This one here was bought from auction here in Japan for export over to the USA, and this is the third one of these that we've exported, so not our first rodeo. Quite a cool vehicle. I've always been a fan of the R31s, even more so now than I used to be. Love the interior, love the rear-wheel drive, inline 6-cylinder, RB20, and that's right, the RB20 started in this car. A lot of people think it was an R32 engine originally, but no, they started in the R31. And the Fairlady, I guess 280Z here in Japan, had a version. Now this one has super low mileage considering it's a rare collector's car, 64,000 kilometers. And yeah, these are rare and they are collector's cars, but it's very hard to find them with really low mileage because when they were brand new cars, not a ton of people were keeping them in garages in the same way that, for example, the R34 Skylines had been kept in garages. And so while you can find some R34s that are selling for $400,000 with only 2,000 kilometers on the odometer, you'd be hard-pressed to find any of these with lower mileage than this one. And it looks like it's in fairly good condition. It has some things here or there, like any car that's this old. And yeah, it is an old car now. For the most part, though, it's very good. It just has kind of bad paint on the car. It's been resprayed. It wasn't a terribly good respray. And there are a few aftermarket parts, which is something you probably don't want to do on such a collector's car. That said, this engine, this version of the engine has slightly more power than the regular version of the RB20 at this time. And so the regular one was like, it's not much difference in power. The regular one was like 200 or 203 or something like that. And this one's like 210 or 207, depending on if you do use PS or horsepower. The big differences, though, are you get a much bigger turbo in this one. And homologation, what homologation means is that you want to go racing and you want to race something that is a stock car, then it has to have certain parts on it. For example, the turbocharger needs to be the same. Bumper ducts, like for example, these ones here, the front mount intercooler, certain things like this need to be on the car from factory, and you have to sell a certain amount of them before you're allowed to go racing with them. So technically you would consider this an evolution of the standard version of the car in the same way that a Lancer Evolution or the STI version 1, version 2, version 3, that sort of car. So you get a bigger horsepower, and in this case 210 horsepower. In racing trim it was 420, and so you do get that bigger, you get the bigger turbo in order to get the more power, but you don't have the more power in the street version of it, and it just makes for the turbo being pretty laggy, honestly. I did get a chance to drive it. It doesn't get good power until after about 4,500 RPM, which is really late by today's standards, but it is adorable because that's how cars were in the 80s. They had a lot of turbo lag, this one even a little bit more so, and then you get all of your power later. And while some people say turbo lag is a little bit bad to have, it is very of the era, and it does feel very cool to get that whoosh of power all of a sudden. And so the coolant looks fine. Oil, probably want to change that. It has a strut tower brace, which might be factory. And then timing belt was changed in 2023 at 64,000 kilometers, including the water pump. Looks like the battery is fairly new. Has an aftermarket air filter here. Has something here. It says Blitz Variable Boost Controller. But look at this. Click, click. You want a different amount of boost. It's not electronic. You just click it. And I'm going to leave it in whatever orientation it was in from factory. Now, you see that? That is the heat shield for... Is it the heat shield? Yeah, heat shield for a tubular header that you get on these, only on the GTS-R version of it. And you can't see the turbo because it's stuffed down in there, but it is a larger one than factory. You also have aftermarket HID headlights there. They called this the red top version of the RB. It's the very earliest versions of them. For the most part, they're very similar. This version of it has the 6 intake runners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, instead of the 12. The earlier ones had 2. This is kind of weird. The early ones had 2 ports, And Mazda did this, Toyota did this, many manufacturers did this, and they would have butterfly valves inside that would shut off or on the intake ports to give you better low-end torque. But the funny thing is the ports in the side of the engine are also split. So it's like a port, and then it has a line between them, and one side of that port goes to one valve and the other to another valve. So I realize that's nerdy information, but people who watch these videos want that kind of stuff. And yeah, the front mount intercooler right here is, they didn't do a lot of front mount intercoolers at this time, and the stock version of this has a little intercooler down in here, a tiny little one. This one's about twice the size, and so yes, another actual racing part on the car. So before I lower the hood, I'm going to show you there is a little bit of rust at the pinch seam in the firewall right here. Unfortunately, it is not an easy place to fix. The good news is there's not a lot of it. There's more over here. It's more mild on this side. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. And a little bit in the center. So I suspect you wouldn't have to take the whole engine out in order to fix that. To the right buyer, something like this with such low mileage, it might be worth it doing an engine out restoration of the engine room just to make everything look super beautiful. If you are going to do that, you're probably going to want to redo the paint on the car. To me, that's the big problem with this car. The repaint, someone wasn't paying attention. And so here you can look at it. Aftermarket suspension is too low and too stiff for my likings. And just a quick, before we go after the auction sheet, just a quick look. So front bumper has those extra large ductings in them. And then it has that lip there. And that lip comes only on the GTS-R. That was the only way to get it. But a lot of aftermarket companies would make replicas of it because it was kind of like the GTR of this era. And it says GT Turbo there backwards, so that if somebody looking in their mirror saw you coming up behind them, you could scare them off. My car's got a turbo. And then to finalize the GTS-R version, you've got this rear wing, which again, you could only get on the GTS-R version. And then you've probably seen them on R31s because they're fairly iconic for the car, because that's what it looked like when they raced this car. Special stickers here in gold, GTS-R, Skyline, and a Nissan one there. And then, of course, the iconic 4-round taillights of this one. Now, a lot of people confuse the DR30s with these ones because the R30 and the R31 don't look too much different. But this one is not the DR30. This one's a little bit newer than that. Okay, so auction inspection sheet, and let's go ahead and read this. It's 1987 Nissan Skyline GTS-R, 2000cc engine, auction rate R. It has been in an accident. Interior C. Got to thank the owner of this for allowing this one on the channel. I love it when specialty cars like this go on the channel. Most of our sales go to dealerships. These dealers don't usually let us post the videos on the channel, and so I'm happy that this one went up. It's incredible. Okay, so 65,291 kilometers. The sales points here are a GTS-R, one of 800 limited edition car, purchased from user. Stainless steel exhaust header, which is factory. Front mount intercooler, again, that's factory. These are the limited edition parts. Water pump and timing belt have been changed according to a sticker in the engine room, and it was just done 1,000 kilometers ago. It's been in a rear accident. And that's kind of important because the rear is leaking water as well, so there might be some sort of a repair there, and there's a little bit of corrosion in the rear to talk about. So aftermarket steering wheel on here. AC doesn't work. Everything seems to work, but it doesn't blow cold, so maybe a leak in the coolant. Seat dirty and ripped. It's not too ripped, and the seats are very much like the S13 Skyline seats in this one. Exterior has been repainted and has wavy paint. It's pretty bad, honestly. Headliner saggy, it's not so bad. Aftermarket suspension, it's true. Underside has been painted, so on an older car like this, you want to be careful of the underside. We can't take the best pictures because it's on the ground, so you can't really get up into every crevasse in there. There might be some rust that I couldn't see. From what I could see, it looked fine. Oh, and by the way, this color of blue, it's unique to this car. This car only came in this color, and it was the only way that you could get this color. So if you see one that is painted this color, it's either GTS-R or somebody's trying to make it look like one. And honestly, outside of Japan, there's not a lot of people who know about this car too much, but in Japan, car enthusiasts would typically recognize one. Okay, floor side member scratched. Left side pocket has water in it, so there's a water leak in the trunk. Now, the interior of the car doesn't smell like mold, but there is a pooling water in the trunk on one of the side pockets. And then right side pocket has surface rust and corrosion. From what I could tell, it was only a minor amount of corrosion. I honestly don't think it's so bad and has been dented. But because of the accident, it may started to have rusted earlier. So maybe have a good look at that or bring it to an experienced body shop. And then the right rear inner panel is bent. Various scratches, dents, and paint wave. And then it says U2 on the roof, which I'm not sure. I'm not sure what we can see here. Apparently the U2 is here. So yeah, right here is dented a little bit. If I didn't point that out, it's probably not going to be that visible. And then a little bit of the hood not meeting the fender there. Honestly, even ones that are in perfect condition, I see that on frequently. I don't know if it's because the hood is so long that once you get to this end, it's hard to line things up. But there is a little bit of a dent in the mounting area for this fender on the front, so it might have sustained a little bit of a hit. It's really not that bad though. Okay, so it still has current plates on it. It's got these work emotion wheels, which, in my opinion, not the right wheels. You might struggle to find the original wheels for them, which I believe are a BBS wheel. I know if you type in GTS-R into Google, you'll find pictures of it and you can see what the original wheels are. I can't recall if they are BBS, but I think they are. They've opted for the illuminated license plate, and so that lights up green when you drive. Unfortunately, you can't have that because we got to hand it in when we deregister the car. That spoiler, actually functional spoiler. It was designed for motorsport, which is very cool. And it is a spoiler, right? Not a wing. The spoiler makes it so that air pockets don't accumulate here. And so having that will allow the air to flow over the back end more cleanly. Keep in mind, though, it is, 1986 technology for aero, and the car is in the shape of a brick. There's only so much that you can do. Okay, so looking at details now. The front lip spoiler has sustained quite a bit of damage. There's paint cracks in it in various places, like here, some chips at the bottom. The front overhang is fairly long on these cars, so the front overhang is from the center of the wheel to the lowest section of the front end. And so you're going to, if you go up a hill or going to a parking lot that's a little bit steep, you're going to take a bit of damage there. I like how these ducts are actually screwed in with actual bolts. That's from factory. It's very cool, I think. And metal door handles. This might have been the end of the metal door handle era. After this, every door handle in the world turned into plastic, it seems. That said, they did corrode a little bit. Metal, especially, they would always use cheap metal for door handles, and by this time they were all kind of toast, but it still is cool. It's unique feeling. Okay, so going down the side, let's have a look at the wavy paint. Okay, and you can see it, right? There's like an orange peel effect you can see here. And then if you look at it down the side, then you can see it actually waving and being uneven in some areas. So the whole car is basically like that: hood, roof, even this black piece of trim that goes down the center, which I don't recall if they all had that black trim or if that's aftermarket painted. And black mirrors, because this has all been repainted at some time. This rubber gasket has deteriorated a little bit. You can probably paint that to make it better. Up here has been painted, but it has faded a little bit. The gaskets on the windows are all pretty good. I'm pretty satisfied with that considering the age of the car. And I believe that this Nissan Motorsports International sticker is original as well for this rear wing, rear spoiler. These, mind you, are aftermarket. Okay, stock exhaust. We're not really seeing too much damage. There are a few scratches here or there that I'm missing on this section of the walk around, but I included them in the images and the other videos that we take for this report. So if you're the customer, you get to see all of the nitty-gritty. If there is anything that's really worth mentioning, I'll mention it in this video though. That's just dirty. Okay, let's go into the trunk. Pull style. The interior smells so nice. It's a very nostalgic smell. It smells old car style, but not in a bad way. These gaskets that it came with appear to be not these. I don't know. They're not trunk gaskets. You would think leaky trunk, maybe there's trunk gaskets in there. But take a look. These look like door things. Like that looks like it lines up for the door. Let's see once we open the door. I don't know. I don't see anything. Ah! It's Isaiah in a white BB. This piece here is broken off here, so it doesn't really sit where it's supposed to. And this is the side pocket that they said had corrosion. So you can see there, if there is corrosion in there, it's not so bad looking. There is quite a bit of sitting water. Now this is just a plastic case, so that's fine. And then I found a little bit of corrosion down here, somewhere around there. I can't really see because it's very low to the ground. And then the water is sitting in this one here, and there's no way for it to drain out. Okay. All right. Onto the interior of the car. They said seats ripped, so you can see some ripping right there. And the driver's seat has some in an odd location, actually. Let's just be careful with the door here. And by the way, no rust in this area here. All looking really good. No rust repairs either. Rip here. Weird location, right? It's like it's got sun damage and some of the fabric just disintegrated, because that's not an area that gets touched too often. Up here too, nobody's touching a headrest, and it started to rip there. But the seat, like I said, very S13 style. I feel like this seat would be nice if we were sitting down a little bit lower to the ground, but that's not too bad. I'm being nitpicky. Steering wheel, it's an aftermarket one. It's a very aftermarket one. I think going with a classic aftermarket would be a good decision. And oh my gosh, the interiors of these, I just love how well that they hold up. These door cards, these window switches, the hazard lights. Look at that. It's a chunky boy. The R30 is even better, I think. The back of the gauge, that looks like a not master system, TurboGrafx box art. Just love it. These are kind of newer school. Like the earlier ones would have a different switch gear. This is auto climate control for 1987. That was very cool. The AC not working, unfortunately. This piece of plastic is a little loose and cracked right there. And there's a little bit of wear right there. Hasn't been smoked in, doesn't smell of cigarettes or of anything bad inside the car. Some aftermarket cup holders and a CD player, plus MD. MD was all the rage in the late 90s, early 2000s here. This has a broken spring in it, so it doesn't pop up the way it's supposed to. You can still get it to open if you're just right with it. Aftermarket shift knob. Again, if it's my car, more classic looking shift knob, more classic looking steering wheel, maybe some classic looking aftermarket Recaro seats or something. A little bit of deformation in the dashboard there and right here, but not so bad. Not even worth mentioning. This is so incredibly clean considering how old is this? 1987 is very old, 35 years old, coming up on 40 years old. It's really good. And it wouldn't take much to make it extremely good. Okay, so that's all we have for this one. If you have any questions, please let me know. The video went on a little bit longer. My apologies, but it is a special car, and I love showing something unique like this to the channel. So thank you so much for watching, everybody, and have a nice day.